flat rates. They're kind of really similar to time-based rates, but they encompass a larger coverage area. You can set different towns to be different flat rates. DC is a flat rate. And then if I go north of DC into Maryland, anything below south of Baltimore, from the DC line all the way up to Baltimore and across, that's another rate. If I have to go north of Baltimore, that's another flat rate. Okay, so you can break it down that way. And then I could have it where it's like, okay, all of the towns surrounding me are this rate. And then I have another radius, all the towns around there is this rate. And that way people don't have to figure out, okay, well, is it 35 miles or 37 miles? And they're not really having to do much math. They just kind of either look at the name of the town or the zip code and boom, there you go. It's really easy to put together a chart and just list out those zip codes or just list out all of those towns and what the flat fees are. And you can include that when you send it to them. And that way they can just scan down the list and be like, perfect. This is how much it's going to be. It's super easy. It's super straightforward. Now, using a combination is what I have found kind of works best when you live, like I said, I know I've mentioned it a million times, you know where I live now, about 30 miles outside of DC. But using that combination when you live close to a large metropolitan area, because it accounts for when you're traveling to the city and for when you're traveling somewhere else, not in the city, or if you live right close to a state line. So if, say, you are at the corner of like Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, or whatever. I think the three of them all come really close together up there. You could have, rates for those different states kind of thing and be like, you live in Maryland, so Maryland location uses mileage, but anything in Pennsylvania is a flat rate or is based on time, or anything in Delaware, et cetera, et cetera. That is base rates, but there's another little thing that I want to kind of bring up to kind of take into consideration, and that's parking, tolls, and valet. These costs are going to vary by location, but you should still have a way to incorporate them into your pricing in a way that's easy for your brides to understand and easy for you to quote them quickly. Parking. Okay, the simplest way that I recommend having you doing this is have parking charges billed directly to the bride at her hotel. It makes it so much easier, especially if you are collecting all of your payment in advance, which is what I recommend. Please don't be trying to collect payment on a day of. You're adding so much unnecessary hassle and stress to you, to your bride, to the bridal party. You may think that it helps you with tipping. Go back a couple of episodes and listen to the first episode from season 1 for my thoughts on tipping, first of all. You think you're getting better tips that way, and just don't. Just make it super easy for yourself, because then you're gonna have to keep a running log of how much it all was, and then just trust me, so much easier. Have any parking billed directly to the bride at her hotel. Now keep in mind, a lot of times the hotel is gonna comp the bride's vendors or give her a discounted rate. So she ends up saving money all around. You don't have to even deal with it. If parking is not associated with the venue, such as street parking for non-hotel locations, find out what the costs are beforehand per hour. Okay, it's gonna be displayed in that area. It should be easily Googleable. A lot of different cities have different payment apps now. You don't even go and feed a meter anymore. Everything is done through an app, or in the parking lots of places, there is a machine there where you pay by credit card or whatever. So you should be able to easily find out what those rates are, add that into the travel fee during your quote. If you're frequently working in a place that has paid street parking, you should know how much the hourly cost is, and you can easily calculate that at booking based on your timeline. List this charge on your pricing information as additional fees with a little asterisk, and let them know that it is based on timeline requirements. So if it is $20 per hour or whatever, and they add more time, then that is also going to add more to their travel fee. So that way they're not freaking out later on where they're like, oh, I added more services. why are you traveling, or excuse me, adding more for travel, you can let them know, hey, I have to be there longer. That means that the travel is going to be more expensive because I had to park for longer. Brides who are having you get them ready somewhere that has street parking, they are aware that it's not free. And as long as you let them know what those parking fees are going to be up front, there's no surprise and it should be just fine. Asking for parking fees after the fact means you have to chase them down afterwards, and that's just a hassle. After the wedding day, after hair and makeup services have been completed and you've left the location, trying to get pricing from brides is a hassle. There's a whole bunch of legal obligations for keeping credit cards on file. And again, you're just adding more unnecessary steps. Just figure out what it's going to be beforehand. Go a little bit higher if you are worried about getting underpaid for it. Add it on and just make your life so much easier. If the hotel has valet, use it. Okay, it's so much faster than self-parking or street parking, and it will automatically be billed to the bride's room. So again, super, super easy. I just put this as a part inside of my contract under parking, letting them know that if there is valet at the hotel, I will use valet and I will have it charged to the bride's room. When I pull up, I let them know I am here for such and such person's wedding, room blah, blah, blah. They write it down on the little ticket and I let them know I will be here for approximately 5 or 6 hours. So they know what section of the garage to park my vehicle in so that they can come and they can get it out faster for me. They're not expecting me to be there overnight or there for a couple of days or whatever. They know I'm there to do a wedding. I'm only going to be there for a few hours. It's easier to find my car afterwards. And then I've already told them the bride's room. I just come in at the end and just be like, hey, here's my ticket. They bring me my card, I give them their little tip, and I go on my way. If you work in an area that has tolls, I suggest using a flat rate structure that takes that into account. Okay, so it's not just your flat travel area. If you know you need to get on the New Jersey Turnpike and you need to go for so many exits or whatever, it's pretty straightforward. You know what that is going to be. Add that in. You don't need to necessarily itemize that. You can just put on your website, you know, when you break down and you say, okay, this is what my travel rates are when people are researching you, plus any applicable tolls. Okay, so when they're like, oh, I thought it should be $50, why are you saying $65? You can just remind them, just be like, yeah, because I know it's going to be about $15 worth of tolls, but you don't necessarily have to write tolls in there on your your quote or whatever. Your proposal, however, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to necessarily break that down. Just put it into that flat travel rate. If she questions it, you can just remind her, yeah, it includes tolls. That was listed on your quote or on my website, my pricing, my welcome packet, whatever. If there is a toll included, it will be added on. One last thing about quotes is make sure that you're listing travel as a single line item. You don't need to break it all down. You don't need to be like, this is how much for, you know, the travel, and then this is how much for tolls, and then this is how much for parking. Just put it all together in one total. This is what it's going to cost, all inclusively, for her to travel to you. Same thing if you listen to me on like destination weddings, or if you go ahead and you read that blog, or if you join Masterclass Magic and you watch the masterclass that I do about creating a business as a destination artist. We do not itemize. This is not like you are submitting to, you know, the accounting department for reimbursement for a work trip. It does not need to be itemized to your bride. Things will be itemized when you go ahead and you send that to your accountant to pay for taxes, because it's going to be categorized different ways and stuff. But at the end of the day, the bride just needs to know the total. How much does this cost for her to have you come to her? That's all that really matters. She doesn't necessarily need to know, or does she really care about all of those little line items? The more line items you give her, the more ammunition you give a picky bride to try and pick that apart and just be like, okay, well, I don't like that you are charging me for the tolls, or I don't like that you're charging me for the parking or for whatever. Don't even give that to them. Don't give them that kind of ammunition. First of all, that's a huge red flag, and it means that your marketing needs to be upgraded to reach a higher quality bride, because you're reaching a really low quality bride if that's what they're nitpicking about. But in general, one line item, that's all they need. They don't need to be confused by all these things. They don't need to feel like you're nickel and diming them. Just give it to her straight. This is how much it's going to cost. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for sharing, and helping to support my dream of empowering the bridal hair and makeup industry. I will see you back next time.